Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fantasy Friday. Today, we're going to be reading another two chapters of The Tiger and the Wolf. Now, last time where we left off was Manny and her band made it to the horse camp, and Akrit and the wolves pursued her. Now, she was able to strike some sort of a deal that would give her a little bit of leeway so that the wolves couldn't directly take her hostage like they want to, and the horse are kind of, reluctantly allowing that to happen. Now, at the end of the previous chapter, we saw that Manny went to Hesprick with some sort of an idea. So let's find out what that was and see if we can make any sort of resolution out of that. So here we are with chapter 43. Hesprick heard her out as Manny presented her plan. She had so little to work with, just odd scraps of things the serpent priest had said, and a few things she, had done. Most of all, she remembered how the old snake had come along with Asmander to free her from the Erie men. Was that the moment the idea had been planted in her mind? You made him take another shape when you took me from the Erie-men, Manny said. Asmander? Yes, I did, Hesprick replied. You gave him another soul. We invited one in together, he and I. And Manny gripped the other girl's hands and said, Then do it for me. Hesprick regarded her warily. The gods of the river, their totem, their souls. There is a flexibility that I think you northerners do not possess. I could not choose when the choice was before me, Manny said. Now, now they're running wild within me. Asmander said that the champion was a chief of souls, a ruler. I suspect he did not say such words, Hesprick noted with a small smile. But yes, you understand it right. The champion's soul is of a different order. Then that is the way I can stay who I am, Manny said. I cannot retain my mind with two souls. I cannot drive one of them out. Even if both could be cut away from me, they would take me with them and leave. Do not speak of that, Hesprick reassured her. It is too late for such things. Perhaps it was too late before we ever spoke in the pit, back in your village. And Manny considered Kalameshli and all his tests and his cruelty. He was trying to drive the tiger out of me, she thought. He was trying to force me to make the choice. Then. But she had no words to go after that, then. They had all been spoken. But there was a contemplative expression on Hesprick's young face. Take this dilemma to one of your wolf priests, she said. They would say it cannot be done. There are no wolf champions. Take this to a priestess of the tiger. She would say the same. And hope had leapt into Manny's mouth. But the serpent is ancient and wise, and his people know better. Hesprick's eyes held no reassurances, but something had hooked the snake girl's interest. And so emerged the words, I cannot promise you that it can be done, but together we might try. If the serpent will offer up his secrets, if you will follow where I guide you, if you are strong enough, if, indeed, this thing is possible at all. But it cannot be done quickly, and it cannot be done here. Where, then? Manny demanded. Already she was feeling tremors through her, as her souls stretched and shouldered against their confinement and against each other. Another attack from them was on its way, she knew. We will be petitioning the invisible world, the serpent girl announced, with an echo of the elder Hesprick's grandeur of speech. That stone place of yours is too far, but there will be others. Places where the sky reaches down to touch the earth, or where the depths of the earth are laid open to the sun. Places where the priests have gone, generation on generation. Some ancient stone or a hill or a cave, some place visited year on year, yet where nobody could ever live. Some place so old and strong that people have forgotten why it was first picked out, knowing only that it has always been there. She smiled fondly as she spoke, and in her eyes Many thought she could see the reflection of ancient shrines beside a southern river, of deep ravines where the coils of the serpent moved within the rock. So Mani thought hard on all she had been told, and then she sought out Broken Axe and explained what Hespric was looking for. Who knew the crown of the world better than he? A place like the stone place, he echoed. Some place near here. A sacred place. A spirit place. And not the place of any one god, she added. A place of great spirits. There must be somewhere. And you will flee there, and hope Stone River does not follow you. She saw his intention in his face. And you will be with me, to guide me. And then she thought, and you will not try to lead my father away and shed your blood for me. A moment's battle of wills, with her meeting his stony gaze and refusing to look away, and he nodded tiredly. He surprised her then, because he knew of no place of ritual anywhere nearby. This was not his land, and he had only a passing familiarity with its ways. Instead, he moved amongst the people who had been working for the horse. They were men and women who had long hunted and foraged the riverside here, and all the lands around. They were nervous around Broken Axe, as well they might be near any wolf. Mani realized that she herself had not even considered asking them. Deer and boar, what could they know? But that was Stone River inside her, like yet another soul. Seeing them through Broken Axe's eyes, she discovered just how much of her father was embedded within her. Hearing him speak to them, simply as one human being to another, something she could not imagine of any of the Winter Runners doing. She was disappointed with herself. I will never be myself until I rid my mind of him, she thought. In the end, they were directed to a broad-framed old boar man, whose long hair was mottled light and dark gray, and whose cheeks were tattooed with tall, upward-pointing darts. There is a place, the old boar had conceded, once he understood what Mani wanted. There is always such a place. Only a fool would seek these places out, save on certain days, and then only by certain ways. But, of course, there is a place. A high hill, with two fallen stones and one still standing. The Erie men bring their dead there sometimes, and lay them out on high platforms for the crows to pick apart. My people bring offerings when the year turns towards winter. Our priests approach with their faces masked by the skins of the boar. When I was young, I witnessed this. But we shun the place at all other times. The Path of Fallen Stones, we call it. It has been there longer than my people. Perhaps longer than any people. It is a place for spirits to dwell, not men. He had told them where they would find those stones, which hills to head into, which winding path would lead them there. His expression said plainly that he thought them mad. None who go there escape being changed, he warned, but to Mani this sounded more like a promise than a threat. You have been kind to me, even when you had no reason. Mani had not wanted to have this conversation with Alade. She was clawing for control of her own destiny, though. Even the kindness of strangers could not go unquestioned. The horse hetman looked slightly embarrassed, hands out as though to defend himself. I have risked, it is true, he admitted. When I tell my hand father what choices I have made, he will either embrace me or turn his back on me. But if we bow our backs even once to the wolf, or to anyone, then they will always hold the lash in their hands whenever they come to us. The strength to run far, the freedom of all horizons, that is the creed of the horse. Where other people try to tame us, to bar our way or make us their slaves, then they will find that the horse too can fight. He said the words proudly, and, just for a moment, she saw there the man he was waiting to become, the man his father perhaps saw in him. But the horse understands profit also. Your friend, the serpent, she has promised. I have sent men south already, with certain words and secrets she has given me. Great are the rewards for my family, whatever should befall this solitary son. I do not regret standing up for you. You're a fool, then, he shrugged. Perhaps I am wise beyond my years. I have brought too much trouble to you, Mani muttered, biting at her lip. Yes, you have. Alade grinned suddenly. To hear Stone River tell it, you are a trouble to the whole world. But perhaps only a little trouble for all that. Over the winter, our wise people were speaking of a great trouble. The serpent girl tells me she has heard the same wherever she has gone, from the river to the crown of the world. I do not think they were speaking of you, Many Tracks. He shook his head. Change is coming upon us, like the north wind from the mountains, like the sand wind from the south. So, I will be kind to a strange girl who doesn't know what skin she should wear, because who knows what will grow from that seed tomorrow? And because I think that being kind to Stone River is like planting a seed in dust. You horse are very stupid. She tried to say it venomously, like Shiri would, but her voice shook and she heard herself sounding close to tears. Not all of us. Just me, perhaps. He was still smiling. How will you outpace your father when you leave here? Somehow. You cannot run south, leaving this land as I suggested? I would. I cannot. With the very thought, the souls twisted inside her. She felt unsteady on her feet, her human form momentarily alien to her. I would not last. I need to cut, or, they are both too powerful within me now. I cannot cast either of them out, yet I cannot keep them with me. She looked at him, wide-eyed. Then she thought, I've said too much. These are secret things. There was only sympathy in his face. Then there is one more favor I can do for you, to help you on your way. Towards evening, a messenger arrived, a young hunter of the winter runners, who had tracked cold news from post to post across the north until he had finally picked up the trail of his chief. Akrit Stone River listened without reaction as the breathless youth recounted it all, standing rigidly straight and obviously fearing an angry response. Stone River just stared, though, not at the messenger, but into the distance of his own imagination, and then he dismissed the youth and turned to Kalameshli, the only other listener. What do you think now? Akrit asked. Of the horse plan to let the girl flee southwards, and thus be forgotten in the crown of the world. You spoke for it, after we departed their fire. The wolf priest nodded wordlessly. And now you see now why it cannot be. But I think you should have done so before. Abruptly, Akrit's rage, like his knife, never far from his grasp, was rekindled. Even you! The girl pulls even you from me! Takes Iron said nothing. Or perhaps you'd say it is I who push you, Akrit demanded, working up his anger further. But this is what it is to be a wolf, to be strong, to drive my own path through the world, never to be led or herded or penned. You have always taught so. Each year of new hunters, this is the message you put into their hearts. This is the truth about the wolf, that we are the strength of the world. I have only sought to be that strength, and this girl, my own daughter, goes about the world unpicking my work, smearing my deeds, placing ill words in the mouths of those whose support I rely on. Even you! Akrit, Kalameshli said softly. You are my chief. I am your priest. We are old friends, you and I. And yet she is here between us! You would protect her from me if you could! There is no need. There is need! If there was ever doubt, then now we see it. I am called, Takes Iron. I am summoned. On the shortest night, I am summoned to that, so that all tribes can meet to choose their high chief. And who summons me? Otayo of the many mouths, the son of 7 skins. He who gave his voice to me after I killed his brother, and now he declares he must choose, and the other chiefs must choose, and no doubt there are a half-dozen who they shall choose between, where once there would be only one. One Takes Iron. And it is because this girl shames me that they do not already have my name in their mouths. He lifted his fists as though to strike the old priest, or the world at large. What will they say then? Here is Stone River whose girl-child flouts him. Why should a man rule the destiny of the wolf when he cannot even control his own get? We will take her again, Kalameshli murmured. Bring her before the other tribes with a halter about her neck, if you will. Something like a laugh escaped from Stone River. Ha! And can I even hold her if I take her? He was speaking too loud, enough for all the rest of the warband to hear. I've had her in my hands already. Where is she now? vanished and fled to her many allies. If I tried to parade her before the tribes, if I dug a pit for her 100 men deep, or built a cage of iron without a door, she would be gone in the moment I sought to bring her forth. She would be rescued from the earth by moles, or spirited away by songbirds. What is she, Takes Iron? Is she even my child? He was so caught in his ranting that he missed the old man's flinch. No capture this time. I'll tear her throat out myself. She is no kin of mine. She is a thing of the invisible world, a changed child, a thing as soulless as the plague people. When I go before the tribes, I will throw her pelt at their feet, be it wolf or tiger or human. Then the voice of Smiles Without Teeth boomed out, "She's moving!" And Akrit stepped instantly, darting over, with his eyes shining in the last rays of the sunset. Two horses had broken out from the camp, heading west. One small figure, one greater one. They were already moving at a gallop. Akrit threw back his head and let out an air-rending howl, and then forced himself into his human shape, and into human thoughts. Undue haste now could mean defeat later, and Manayee might have more friends waiting for her. Perhaps tiger friends. "Weapons and armor, as much iron as you can carry, and leave the rest!" he roared. "Let us be iron wolves, fast as you can, and then we shall run them down!" No wolf could outrun a rider in the short term, but wolves ran on when laden horses tired, especially on the uneven crown of the world. In what seemed a few heartbeats, the warband was on the move, picking up the track of the horses, knowing them through their scent even though they had ridden off into the concealing dusk. There was the spoor of Broken Axe. There was that of the treacherous Manayee, plain to every nose. Silent and grim the pack went after them, murder on their minds. Only after they had gone did Manayee herself come out from one of the horse tents. She wore a quilted coat dyed in faded colors of red and mauve, a garish and much darned garment. Her original coat was now fast receding on horseback, worn by a horse girl only a little larger than herself. The deception would not work for long, but she was hoping for Akrit's fury to take him a long way from the horse camp before he realized it. The riders had a good head start and were making off across open country. When their pursuers came close, they would step, and 4 unladen horses would outstrip all the wolves in the world. They had undertaken this task without complaint when Alliday had asked it of them. Hesprick had purchased a great deal of loyalty from the Horse Society, it seemed. The rest of the camp was packing up now, ready to return to the trading post, where the Society would have the numbers to withstand the rage of the winter runners, if need be. Alliday was dismissive about such a confrontation, and yet, at the same time, he was going among his people, enjoining them to be brave. Manayee worried for him. But her path and his must separate for now. She was departing for the sacred place, this path of fallen stones. She was going to confront the madness in her souls, to conquer it or to be conquered. "Are you ready?" The new Hesprick was at her side, teeth gleaming as she smiled. The young energy that ran through her now was the most alien part of the serpent's transformation. Manayee was amazed at how much of the elder Hesprick's character had been simply a factor of the years that burdened him, and that his rebirth had stripped away. The others were already gathered. Broken Axe and Loud Thunder were talking quietly. She saw the bear grin, a boyish expression that only emerged when he was happy and with his old friend. To see it was almost a relief. If the big man was to risk himself, it would at least be for Axe, and not for Manayee herself. The 3 Southerners stood apart, and Asmander's eyes flicked between the 2 women as they approached. "Messenger!" he said, and glanced at Manayee again, not quite guiltily. "I am here to serve you." Hesprick nodded. "Champion, always I am glad of your company, but do not confuse my path with your own." Asmander lowered his eyes. "When I was told you were dead, I knew despair." There was a wealth of pain in his voice, a sudden open wound, but Hesprick held up a hand to forestall him. "No more of that," she said. "Enough has been said. If many tracks will challenge you, then that is her business. What about your fellows, though, champion? Are they so happy to walk in your tracks?" "No!" Venator snapped immediately. arms folded. Quiet, you! Asmander told him. You are my shadow until I set you free. And you, laughing sister? Shiri smirked. No sister of yours, old man, whatever face you now wear. But I am not yet bored of this river boy and his stupidity. I will stay. Alade came next. Hesprick clasped her little hands in front of her, and he matched her. May your road be smooth underfoot, he intoned, and then, though that is a poor blessing for the crown of the world. May the earth carry your burdens, Hesprick matched him, and the serpent's back lead you home. She tugged her scarf tighter over her hair. Many tracks, Alade called out. We'll meet again. Stay well. She carried his parting smile with her a long way, once they had set off. And so concludes chapter 43. So, a bit of a shorter one, but interesting. It appears the horse and Mani have outsmarted Akrit, at least temporarily. They sent off a diversion with 2 horses carrying 2 people, one of them appearing to be Broken Axe, the other one appearing to be Mani. So, wearing their clothes, the wolf caught the scent and chased after them in the wrong direction. Now, Mani is going with Hesprick and all those who wish to travel with them to this new sacred place where they're going to do something. They're going to try something. So let's see how that turns out in chapter 44. Moving north again, a day's travel took them to the sacred place of the boar. At first, they were following the river into the woods, but then they broke off into tangled, cluttered country, hunting for the tracks they had been told of. Broken Axe sniffed out the scent of boars and led them to a narrow trail half overhung with the knotted branches of trees. They should have moved faster, for even Loud Thunder could make a good pace when stepped. Mani had hoped to take the trail on wolf feet, to range alongside Broken Axe with her nose open for danger. When the time came, though, she could not do so. She took a deep breath to step, and instantly those 2 souls were welling up like pus inside her, poisoned and corrupted, pressing and swelling against her. She fought them down, though they racked her body, forcing themselves up in a mouthful of bile and trying to make her vomit one or the other out. She was a prisoner of her human shape. So they were limited to a human speed, and less even than that, for Mani felt feverish, shivering. The fits came and went, each one tearing at the tenuous hold she was keeping on the world. And the going grew harder and harder, the upward slope of the land weighing on her like stones. She was awash with sweat, her heart skipping and dancing to the rhythms that seemed to ape those of the tiger's dance. There was a pressure within her head born of too many eyes trying to peer out from the same 2 sockets. She did not stop, though. Even though she knew that she was slowing them all, she would not call out for aid, and she would not give in to herself. Whenever the ground tilted up beneath her, she went on all fours, climbing with human hands and feet where she would have liked to leap like a tiger not so long before. When the land was flatter, she stumbled and lurched along, with the wolf inside her snarling and clawing for the freedom of the far horizons. But then the way was more steep than not, and the forest was rising upwards ahead of them, following the slope of a hill. Hold! Called the high voice of Hesprick. Not another step until I've studied our way. Our way is up, Venator pointed out. Mani squinted upwards, and there, within her sight, rose a hill crowned with stones, and not just the 3 the boar had mentioned. There was a clutch of enormous boulders, as though some giant spirit had plucked them from the mountains and set them down here, where they had no business to be. She thought she saw more, too, odd suggestions of regular lines that might have indicated the work of man, but overtaken by enough time to bury them. And there were ridges running around the hillside that almost seemed like... There's a path, she croaked. It goes round, 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 and up. Venator made a disgusting noise. That's not a path for people who want to get anywhere fast. We'll go straight up. We will not, Hesprick said quietly but firmly. We will approach this place as its creators intended. Perhaps they were wiser than we are. Certainly, they were wiser than you are. She raised an eyebrow at Venator, who loomed over her, big and mean enough to tear her in 2. The old pirate just looked surly, though, and took a step back. The path spiraled up the hill, in and out of trees at first. Then they had left the forest behind, climbing out of it onto rocky slopes, with each lessening turn bringing them closer to the huge stones above. Squinting upwards past the glare of the dusk-bound sun, Mani's mind jumped back and forth. Natural or made? Made or natural? She could not decide which. The greater boulders were too vast to have been moved there, too unworked to have been intended. And yet, as they drew near, her earlier conviction returned to her. Someone had built here once, laid stone on stone just as she had seen in the shining halls. She remembered the intricately carved stonework of the tigers, and how so much of it had fallen to ruin. Whoever had made this hill their temple had done so in an age that made all the works of the tigers seem mere follies of yesterday. The earth, the grass and moss and mounded soil, had almost completely swallowed all signs of it. Only the occasional protruding block remained there as mute witness, a certain regularity that led Mani's gaze along the secret, hidden lies of the place. She remembered how the stone place had first seemed to her, with the spirits lowering low in the sky, their twisting scrutiny anchored to that island in the swamps. As they approached the summit, she knew this was a kindred place. Not so grand, surely, but perhaps older. Those spirits that dwelled here, sleeping within the earth or spread across the wide sky above, they were powers that had been drifting away from human affairs for centuries. Yet there was strength here. She felt it in the hairs at the back of her neck, in the clutch of her bowels. Or else she was simply desperate to believe so, because if there was nothing here, then all Hesperic's lore and wisdom would accomplish nothing. The three stones themselves seemed almost nothing. One stood, barely more than a man's height. Two were fallen, and one of those cracked in two. Together they formed two sides of a triangle inside a little round space that was half walled off by the mounded boulders. This small stretch of mystery was what their long spiraling progress had led towards. Feeling the strength of those quiescent spirits, though, Mani knew that Hespric had been right. To approach as the boar did, to approach as the ancient architects had intended, that was how to win one's way to the sacred site without gathering the ire of those whose power suffused the place. If they had just scaled the hillside as Venator had suggested, then they would have reached the top amid an invisible tempest of offense. Any ritual conducted against that anger could only have gone badly wrong. And now they were at the top, and Mani collapsed onto her knees at the summit's edge, looking around her at where those old stones had cut through the turf like loose teeth. They had been carved once, but time had smoothed over whatever message human hands had incised in them. Hespric, though, was looking downwards with a speculative air. "One might wonder just whose hands raised this place, and when," the serpent girl murmured, echoing Mani's own thoughts. Her copper eyes were narrowed in thought, and Mani could see the world as she did, just for a moment. The spiraling path that encircled the hill was like the coils of a serpent, so that they now stood at its head, here where the stones were. And was that just a coincidence, or was this some distant, cold splinter of the serpent's history that even Hespric did not know of?
So you're going to go straight on with this business, are you?
Venator demanded. The serpent girl shook her head. Preparation is ever the friend of the ritualist.
What does that even mean?
The pirate demanded. It means priest business, Asmander decided. And we have traveled far, and while the messenger works, we will sleep, save for those who watch. And when the wolves sniff out the truth and come for us? Shiri asked. Asmander put a hand to his ear. What's that I hear? Laughing Girl wants to take the first watch? Then of course she must. Dung eater. Not laughing now? Asmander challenged her. She shrugged. At least you're not moping and groaning about your honor any more. Selling that girl to her father was the one clever thing you ever did, and after it, you were no fun at all. I prefer you when you're stupid and happy. Venator smirked.
You don't know him back home. He's all smiles half the time, and about to cut his own throat the rest. You try being his slave, see how much fun it is.
And then, seeing Asmander's gaze on him,
What?
a slave?
Slave with no collar is still a slave,
the pirate replied with a rebellious look.
Enough, Broken Axe intervened. Laughing Girl, you keep watch with Loud Thunder until the moon's high. I'll see out the rest of the night with one of these rivermen. That means you, then,
Venator told Asmander, stretching. The champion eyed him with half a smile. Of all the slaves in the world, you are the least satisfactory.
There are worse ambitions.
Many had wanted to put herself forward to watch out part of the night. It had hurt when Broken Axe had overlooked her, though she knew she would not have been capable of it. In a sudden reversal of perspective, she understood how he saw them all. They were his pack, his tribe. They were here because of an odd network of loyalties, but all focused on making one of their number well again. While she was weak, Broken Axe had arranged the pack around her, her strengths covering for her. When, no, if, she was strong again, then she would lean on her to precisely that degree that she could endure. That was how he led, and that was how a wolf leader ought to. Lying on the cold ground, huddling close with Hesperic's slight form tucked against her, and Asmander's back against her own, she indulged a fantasy in which Axe, and not her father, had risen to become chief of the Winter Runners. How the world might then have been different! And her own life, how might that have gone if her father had been no more than a strong hunter of the wolves? But without Stone River and what he had done to her mother, surely there would be no Manayee Manytracks. Knowing what she now knew about her origins, perhaps there would just have been Akrit, childless. Her wolf soul would have found some other body to be born into, her tiger soul likewise. The unlikely and traumatic combination that had given rise to her would never have arisen. If she had a destiny at all, she shared it with him. And she shivered and tried to sleep, but she was still awake when Loud Thunder pushed his mountainous way in to share their warmth. Only then, with Broken Axe lying alert atop one of the rocks, his muzzle on his paws and his ears cocked, did she find a little rest. Her sleep was troubled with dreams, but then she had been their plaything ever since she came to the shining halls. Asleep, the cages of her souls were thrown open, and they ran about the spaces of her mind, hunting one another, hunting her too. Their battlefield was every place between her home and village and this hilltop, all jumbled together inside her mind. She had expected to dream of great spirits, to be touched by the powers that inhabited this place. They did not come, though, and she was left to her own mercies until morning. Dawn's light found Broken Axe pacing restlessly about the hilltop, scrambling up to find a high perch, then dropping down again. When enough of them were awake, he stepped into his grim-faced human shape.
I scented tigers overnight, he confirmed. I didn't see them, but they were out there, down at the tree line.
Then why didn't they attack? Shiri asked. They weren't shy about it last time, and we don't even have a cave to hide in now.
2, maybe 3 at most, he informed her. Scouts, but they'll be back in force. Tonight we'll have to face them, I think, if we're still here. So tell me that we won't still be here.
Hesprick looked unhappy. The serpent's path involves many twists.
Just plain words,
Broken Axe told her flatly. She pursed her lips in exasperation before snapping, You want words you can understand? Then know this, what Mani is seeking, it cannot be done. Neither amongst wolves nor tigers is such a thing known. Even if she were of the Eyrie, say, or one of the patient ones, it could not be achieved without cleansing and ritual, fasting, meditation, and the good will of her totem, or her totems, I suppose. None of this has been accomplished in the whole history of the world. Faced with that statement, Broken Axe blinked.
Then what are we doing here?
I am of the serpent, who were the first people in this world to undertake a great many things. And so, perhaps, I will be the first to accomplish this, if Mani remains strong. She held up a hand to forestall his next question. But it will take time. Mani must go on a great journey, one that laughs at all her wanderings until now. I need water to be fetched for me. I need a fire going. Champion, do you know the 7 figures? Asmander grimaced. Perhaps I can remember them. Do your best. Scratch them on stones, big ones. Make a circle of them. And, after all that is done, and after I have washed and prayed, and let the spirits of this place walk into and out of my mind and grow accustomed to my scent, then, perhaps, I will be ready. Broken Axe sighed, sharing a look with Loud Thunder.
So, by noon, midnight, winter?
Every word you speak drives it further away, Hesprick told him, darkly. Asmander had finished scratching the seven figures, or at least as well as he was ever going to. They were part of every child's education, or of those who got an education. The snake priests taught them as an aid to contemplation, as the basis for the written script of the Sun River Nation. They were a relic from the oldest kingdom, that lost land the serpent people still talked about with such bitter nostalgia. Ah, yes, what a land we had, what magic and majesty before the coming of the pale shadow people. It came to Asmander now that a great deal of what he had so faithfully learned as a child had not served particularly to prepare him for his present circumstances. There had been, for example, a notable paucity of information about surviving the cold north. There had been too many tales of heroes, and too little on how to act like one when the time came. He set to repairing his Macan, which lost its teeth as often as old Crocodile, but, sadly, could not grow new ones on its own. He was almost out of the gum he used to reattach them, and it came to him that he had no idea what materials the crown of the world might furnish for providing more. It was unlikely to be a problem that the wolf tribe ever needed to solve. He glanced back at the three great stones. Hesprick was kneeling there, hands on her knees, her head bowed. Chains of obligation. Axe felt himself responsible for the girl because of something to do with her mother. Thunder was here out of loyalty to Axe, and perhaps he liked the girl also. Hesprick was bound to Manii by cords of obligation. And Asmander? It was time to admit that Asmander had so far made enough of a mess of his life that serving Hesprick seemed the only honorable path. He thought,
But, as paths go, probably not a very long one. And, like all storied heroes, my death seems unlikely to be a private matter. I have invited my friends along.
even with this thought, there was a footstep nearby, and then Venator squatted beside him. Asmander studied his leering face, the heavy jaw, the cruel flinty eyes, the broken nose never quite set right. There was a majesty to this man's ugliness that the heroes of old might kill for.
The wolves will be with us long before nightfall,
The old pirate offered.
it seems likely. And the tiger are already here. So says Axe, and more on the way. Reckon they'll fight each other? We'll have a good view of it. I think that they will mostly fight us, Asmander decided quietly. Each other as well, but they will throw their greatest strength into seizing the girl. We should just let them take her. I'm not arguing, Venator sighed. You are, though, because of the snake and broken axe. Well, then I suppose I am.
Venator nodded philosophically, chewing away at a strip of jerky.
This is the bit,
He spoke around a wad of soggy meat,
where you tell me the serpent possesses some great magic in this place. That means, somehow, we win. That would be a good thing to be able to tell you, yes. Or that this thing that the snake girl is doing turns out to be real knife point magic at killing wolves and tigers. That doesn't seem likely, does it?
Asmander continued at his task, but cocked an eye at the other man.
Did you have something else you wanted to say? I wanted to say how stupid it is to have so many grown men wasting their time over one mad girl. Were I a priest, I would write your words in the book of truths so as to last for all times. Alas, I am not, so I will be lost when we all get killed ourselves by angry northerners.
Venator snorted, but there was a coal of anger behind his eyes still, a look of resentment. Asmander sighed.
I think it was time that we are honest, you and I. My father felt the hook of envy when the champion chose me. It was something he himself had sought all his life, yet never found.
Venator grunted.
And he has used my champion well in pushing the interests of our clan. But there was ever a distance between us from that day on. A distance he would not speak of, and so it grew. And I think we both know that, in sending me to find the Iron Wolves, there was more than a little hope that I would not return. As with so many of my father's plans, he wins every way. If I do not come back, he is rid of me, which is good. If I return with wolves, then he gains in Tecumen's eyes. If I return without them, I lose that same respect.
He's a clever bastard, your father.
You say so little I can argue with that I feel disappointed.
You'll get to argue with the wolves soon enough. We all will.
Asmander laughed briefly.
Ha! The famed Iron Wolves! If only I could tell my father. They are real, yes. Also, they want to kill me. And they are just men, even as we are men. They eat different food and follow different gods, but, like men everywhere, they quarrel with one another, and their stupid quarrels end in bloodshed. How like us they are! Almost as bad as the dragon.
Nobody is as bad as the dragon,
Venator stated with pride. Asmander tried another laugh, but he couldn't manage it, and so took a deep breath. The champion stirred within him watchfully, sensing a moment of crisis coming, but one it could not help him with.
I now am ready to fight, he declared.
Not sure about that,
The old pirate jibed.
Give it another 10 years.
I was good enough to defeat you.
He had been expecting an angry response, but Venator just looked away, his mouth twisted.
Yes, yes, you were drunk and half asleep, Asmander prompted.
The pirate shrugged.
But we have walked a long road together since then, and I have gained great joy from knowing that you would cut my throat while I slept every night we have been together, if only you were free to do so.
You are right on that one.
But here we are now in this stupid land, and I am proud to have you with me for one more dawn, Venet. Though it seems likely there will not be another.
Speak for yourself,
The pirate snarled.
I'll still be, still, huh?
His jaw worked.
What did you call me?
You heard?
In the quiet falling between them, the laughter of loud thunder rolled in from across the hilltop, startlingly loud and intrusive.
What am I supposed to do with that?
Venator, Venet, demanded.
Whatever you want. That is the point of freedom.
Why would you?
Because I remember fighting you at the mouth of the Sotek. Because I should have killed you, or not killed you. You were mine. I should not have let my father chain you.
It took the smallest motion for Venet's stone blade to appear in his hand.
And if I slice you open right now?
Then we will fight, and I would welcome it.
Asmander felt himself tense, feeling the champion crouch about his shoulders, awaiting its moment.
It's a long way to the river,
Venet said softly.
Not too long for you.
He could not read the other man at all, had no clue whether to expect an attack. But then Venet shook his head, looking oddly lost, and a moment later he had turned away and was picking his way towards the tree line, weapon still in his hand, and his tread uncertain.
And you should go too,
Asmander told the air. And, sure enough, there was Shiri, dropping down from her eavesdropping post atop one of the boulders, and stepping back to human as she did. She just looked at him, blinking a few times.
How could you let him go?
He knew she wasn't talking about the loss of Venet's blade to help them in the fight to come.
The right thing to do,
Asmander muttered. And then Broken Axe howled, loud and long. Relieved of further explanations, the champion rushed over to see what had emerged from out of the trees. They saw the wolves, Akrit's war band, that had plainly not been fooled as well as anyone had hoped. There was a good score of them there so far, some in one form, some in another. A handful of those who wore a human shape were clad in shirts of metal, the iron wolves whose fame had spread all the way to the banks of the Sotek. Asmander thought,
Look, father, it's your army. What can I buy them with now, though? The only thing they want is my blood. Will that do?
They've started.
Broken Axe was abruptly at his shoulder. For a second, Asmander thought he was simply stating the obvious, but then he glanced back to see Hesprick and Mani sitting together between the stones. The wolf grimaced.
How long do snake rituals take in your land?
It varies. Sometimes they're over in as little as 3 days. Your big friend is gone?
He had pressing business elsewhere.
Do you Southerners ever give a straight answer to anything?
Broken Axe asked exasperatedly, eyes still fixed on the warband below.
Yes, I am here, and I will fight, for Hesprick and for you,
Asmander told him flatly. He earned a curt nod. Perhaps there might have been further words, but just then Shiri was calling out,
I see tigers! Many tigers coming!
Asmander attempted a brittle smile.
So, everyone is here! We can start now!
And so concludes chapter 44 of The Tiger and the Wolf. Lots of crazy stuff going on in that one. We have Mani escaping temporarily with Loud Thunder and Broken Axe and all the rest, making it to the sacred place of the boar, where there are the stones required for Hesprick's ritual, to try something with Mani, to try to create a new soul or to merge her souls, to solve her soul problem at the very least. And then Asmander and Venet had a bit of a heart to heart, and Venet is now his name, no longer Veneter, because Asmander has spoken his true name, his actual name, Venet, which has essentially freed him from the chains of being Asmander's follower. He no longer has to follow him around. He is Venet. He is a free man. So he has taken off immediately. He considered fighting Asmander, but he decided to just run away. So he's gone. We no longer have the pirates' help, but maybe that's okay. Maybe not. We'll see. And then now we have the wolf closing in. And that's a problem because Shiri also mentioned that the tiger are closing in. So everything is kind of culminating at this one moment. They have the high ground, at the very least. They have at the top of that spiral staircase leading up to the ritual place. And Mani and Hesprick are deep in thought trying to conduct the ritual. So, next time, I suspect there's going to be something crazy happening. So make sure you tune in again next Friday to see how all of these events turn out. I look forward to seeing you there. Until then, enjoy your weekend. Bye now.